Well, joining me now on 891 Mornings is our regular commentator from America, publisher of the TrendsJournal, Gerald Celente. Good morning, Gerald.
Good morning, Ian.
Now, the first Tuesday in November is very famous here for the Melbourne Cup. The whole nation stops for that, the biggest horse race in Australia. But you've got the biggest race in the world happening over there, which will be decided on Tuesday, November the 6th. Who will be the next president?
Well, we had forecast on October 3rd, 2011, that if the Republican leaders were Romney, Bachmann, or Perry, which were the three leaders at the time, that Obama would win. And it was very easy, and we've been writing about it in the TrendsJournal since. You see, this is just a presidential reality show. It's a made-for-TV spectacle. And whoever reads the teleprompter the best, or whoever acts the best on the show, and has the best family and puts on the best act, wins. And I, as a political atheist, that's the way I look at it. And we also knew that Obama would play the perfect born-again progressive, looking out for those little folks. Listen to his language. There are more folks in there than you could ever count. Every speech rolls up the sleeves, talks about the folks. And the other guy, of course, is the vulture capitalist. He's disconnected to the folks. He's the rich guy. So we pick Obama. Even more so now, Ian, since the Republican convention and part of their platform, in which you hear now Romney flip-flopping about his pro-choice, and now that women are only entitled to get an abortion in the eyes of Romney if it's a case of incest, rape, or the woman will get ill from having the child. And his running mate, Paul Ryan, he looks at as nobody has the right to get an abortion. So women don't like that so much. And the Obama team is already playing on that one.
What about the first wives? For a while there, it seems as if there may have been a battle between who people would vote for on the basis of who they were married to.
Well, in the old days, in the presidential reality show, in the black and white days, the good, loyal wives of the contestants, they just played the auxiliary roles, standing beside their man in mostly silent support. But that's changed now, because the presidential reality show, and again, reality shows have nothing to do with reality, it's become so unreal that at each of these national conventions, the prime time of an entire episode is being devoted to the devoted wife of the perfect husband. This is unlike the rest of TV land. You turn on these sitcoms. How do they portray the husbands? Well, these are slovenly, lazy, overweight, dopey, beer-drinking, couch potato slobs that continually screw up, but they make it through life because on TV land, they're all-knowing supermom wife, and the two amazing, special, and exceptional children get them through life, but not on the presidential reality show. Now this dope who couldn't, tie his shoes or boil water is transformed into the shining example of the smartest, bestest husband and daddy that any woman could ever hope to have, and he's the all-inclusive, all-around man who rides horses, pets dogs, plays basketball, shoots pool, does push-ups, fixes the kids' bikes, and that, you see, makes him qualified to stand at the helm of the world's last remaining, though swiftly declining, economic and military superpower.
We're talking to Gerald Celente, publisher of the TrendsJournal, our regular commentator from America, here on 891 Mornings. When you look at the performance of the women, though, the first wives, a lot of people were captivated by them. It made me wonder, well, perhaps is it time to have a woman president in America? Now, you've got the choice, haven't you, with a woman called Jill Stein. She's running, former governor of Massachusetts. And, in fact, Gerald Celente, some of the things she's saying sound a bit like some of the things that you say. I wonder what you think of her. I'll just quote from what she said recently. She said, if you put all the people together, we have the potential for a Tahrir Square type event and turn the White House into a greenhouse in November. She's talking about people power.
Yeah, but you see, we have when I was a kid growing up, they used to talk about the Soviet Union. And they had one party in the Soviet Union, and they'd have an election, and they laugh. They say, ha, 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 98% of the people got reelected. In the United States, Ian, about 94% of Congress gets reelected. It's a two-headed one-party system. It's a total lock. And it's so hard to break through. It's almost impossible if you're not very, very rich or very, very powerful.
So she's getting no coverage at all. Jill Stein.
She's getting nothing. They don't. You say Stein, they will think of Stein of beer. They have never heard of her. She's nowhere. Makes no news. Look how they marginalized Ron Paul, and when he was a Republican candidate, because he wasn't one of the crew. That's what we're going to see. I'm not voting in this election. I will not vote for a lesser of two evils, and I don't associate with lesser of two evils. I don't go out with them. I don't do business with them. I certainly won't vote for one to run my life.
So how many people will vote in the election then?
I think you're going to see a very low voter turnout. And I'm mentioning not voting for Jill Stein. I used to vote for. I voted for Ralph Nader. I would have voted for Ron Paul. I don't agree with a lot of the things, but I was on board with some of them. You see, by voting for it, you're perpetuating the system. How many people will turn out to vote? Listen carefully to Michelle Obama's speech last night. Near the very end, it was perfect. And remember, this is all scripted, and it's done formulaic. At the very end, she talked about our brave men and women who are giving up their lives for us so we can have our freedom as they're fighting in occupied countries. And then the sentence right after that, and make sure you do your part as a good American and get out and vote. Because that's what this election is coming down to. So many people are turned off about this election, that this election is going to be decided on who turns out to vote. And that's what her message was.
Many of the people fighting overseas are African Americans. Do you think that was an appeal to them to come out and vote?
Yes, of course it is. And when you look at the crowd, you look at the coverage of the Democratic convention and the Republican convention, you see a lot of dark faces at the Democratic crowd, and it's very white at the Republican crowd. So, of course, they're playing to the Hispanic population. When you listen again to the speeches by Julian Castro, the mayor of, I believe, San Antonio, Texas, and talking about immigration issues and how Obama's opening up the borders, this is going to be a very tight race based upon voter turnout. And that's what this is going to come down to. And, of course, it's also going to come down to the debates. And that first one, of course, is October 3rd. But in the absence of a great screw-up or something, a wild card, again, we're saying it looks like Obama. You look at the difference in the energy already of the two conventions, and this is only the second night of the Republican convention, and the energy level of the Democratic, is much, much higher at the Democratic convention.
We're talking to Gerald Celente here on 891 Mornings, our regular commentator from America, publisher of the TrendsJournal. Just on the economic trends, China seems to be slowing down a bit. America seems to be picking up a bit. Is there any hope? Because often when you talk on this program, Gerald, people say, oh, gosh, it all sounds terrible. Is there any hope on the horizon economically?
Well, again, I just heard from one of your ministers recently talking about the commodity bubble being over. And, then he had to backtrack on it.
Yes.
Because I believe it was the deal that fell through.
Yeah, the BHP Billiton deal, which was in this state, it was going to be one of the biggest mines in the world. That's been put on hold indefinitely.
Exactly. And, of course, there didn't make news over here. I only know about it because I follow these things. So you're seeing, and I've said this before, as goes Europe and China, Europe and the U.S., so goes China. If Europe and the U.S. don't buy things, China doesn't make them. And look at Vietnam. Look at the scandal going on in Vietnam and the bank runs going on. Look at the bank runs that are now happening. The people in Spain are taking their money out of the banks, and they're even moving out of Spain. I'm not making that up. As I said, as goes Europe and the U.S., so goes China. As goes China and Indonesia and Vietnam, they're the natural resource absorbers. If they're not making Australia, Canada, Brazil, Chile, Bolivia, and other natural resource exporting countries aren't exporting. You look at all the data, more data just came out the other day on China. It's a slowdown. There's numbers coming out that are at 2009 levels coming out of China. So no, it's not a question of me being optimistic or pessimistic, because if you want to listen to sentimental romantic slop, you turn on the Democratic and Republican conventions, because that's all they're selling. It's a bunch of sentimental romantic slop. It's the presidential reality show. Not one word of substance coming out of their mouths about the economy. Nothing. And nothing about the war.
Do you think then that you'll see the lowest voter turnout in history, or what will it be?
The TrendsJournal coming out in the autumn edition is going to be stay home, don't vote. We're pushing for 40% or less. We're saying that if 40% or less of the people turn out to vote, we can call this an invalid election. What is it, a country of 312 million people? This is the choice we have? Coke or Pepsi, McDonald's or Burger King, and they're both about that level of intelligence relative to health and nutrition.
What about Obama's position on bringing health care to millions of Americans? Can you say that at least he's done something?
I would love to, because I believe in national health care. This is turning over health care to the corporations. That's all it is. And it's a cutback in health care. And it's a tax on the people. And we're paying already. I am all in favor of national health care. But here's the other thing, Ian. By the way, I have an honorary doctorate from the National University of Health Sciences for the work I've done in complementary medicine over the years. One of the first books I worked on in the mid-1980s was Natural Healing by Dr. Jack Saltinoff. And nothing is going to change in this country. You can have the best health care in the world. As long as the people are the most obese people on the planet, as long as they continue the habits that they have, you're looking at childhood diabetes, type 2 diabetes that never existed before. So it's much bigger than just a healthcare program. And again, it's a flawed program. It enriches the... Look at the way the stocks moved up from the big healthcare companies when Obamacare was passed.
And if Mitt Romney did win, that couldn't be undone. That would stay in place, though, the healthcare that's...
Yeah, it'll stay. We think it'll stay in place because the Supreme Court ruled on it. And the hypocrisy is it's almost a mirror image of what Romney passed when he was governor of Massachusetts.
Okay.
Again, you know what they call flip-flops now, how he's changed his position, how Romney's changed his position on pro-life and pro-choice? They call them flip-flops. In real life, you call them lies.